Hello everybody and welcome to the Subject Selection Parent Information Evening for Year 7 into Year 8. I'm sorry that Jeff can't join us. Usually he would be the third party in this presentation, but he has recently had some surgery on his ankle. He's recovering well, but he's not going to be joining us today. Also, I'd like to very importantly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we are working and living on. So can I, on behalf of our Hillbrook community, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we assemble, the Turrbal, Yagara and Yagarapul people, and their elders past, present and emerging. This has always been a place where people have gathered for learning. We also honour all those from the Enoggera Boys Home and acknowledge their connection with our school. We express together our hope for a positive shared future. Mark.
Thanks, Stephanie. So tonight we'll talk about three things. We'll begin by speaking about the purpose of our curriculum for Year 8, and Stephanie will also speak about adolescent development and social development for this age and stage. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the subject selection process for your children. So just to begin, what is important here at Hillbrook as a learning community? And we have a dynamic combination of things that make up and support our learning community. Trust, and that trust is amongst our staff, students and parents. And we have an academic focus as a school. We support students in their development and offer social support for students. We have curriculum coherence, which means what we do, hopefully, makes sense and our choices make sense. And respect is an important element of our learning community. And again, like trust, that respect is amongst students, staff and parents. So together we believe that these create a culture where students can learn and students can achieve whatever it is they're working towards achieving. So the purpose of our curriculum, as we're hoping you've understood over the last 12 months, is that we want to develop a broad range of skills in our young people and develop essential bodies of knowledge that they will question and query and develop as their time progresses in our learning community. We want young people to discover their interests and find opportunities here to use their interests while also challenge what they may be interested in, and that they learn the value of actually going and learning something new for the first time and that experience of learning something new. We want students also to see that when they move from subject to subject and across knowledge and skills, that these are transferable, that they're not sitting in English class and then going to the next class and not seeing the connections. So cross-discipline mindsets are really important and part of what we're hoping our curriculum and the purpose of our curriculum has been developed on. So we also concentrate as a learning community on developing leadership skills and also developing personal skills such as planning and organisational skills, but to a growth mindset where young people don't just believe things are fixed and that if they don't know something, for example, they just don't know that yet. We want students to take personal responsibility for their learning, and this is their experience of learning, and we want them to build their capacity rather than dependency on others during this process, and develop their emotional and social intelligence. So that's really about understanding who they are as a person and then using that to understand others that they interact with in our learning community. We want students to be broad thinkers. We want them to think outside of themselves and that things aren't just about themselves, but about a broader context in which they should seek to understand and contribute to. And we want students to really be thinking then, well, if that's outside and I've got the opportunity to be involved in that, what's my purpose? What am I here for? And what's my purpose in life? And so Stephanie will now spend some time talking about how students, as they move from Year 7 to Year 8, are really finding their fit and then how that contributes to finding their purpose.
Thanks, Mark. So these 12 and 13-year-olds getting ready for year 8 and 9, having had their first year at Hillbrook, and now they're looking at finding their fit. And I'm just wanting to gather this notion of finding their fit, to be courageous, to be creative, and to be connected. Sometimes, just sometimes, when we maybe, as the adults in their life, experiencing some frustration, we think, oh, if only these kids would grow up. Well, they're being exactly what they're meant to be doing. They're actually exactly where they're supposed to be, genetically, cognitively, socially. They need this time, in this time of change and growth, to explore, to push some boundaries, to find new friends, to find new passions. And I just want to highlight some things that are happening to their brain, some things that are joyous to celebrate with the essence of this stage of adolescence, and then to look at what we can do to help support them and to find their fit as they leave year 7 and move into year 8 and 9. So some things about this stage: it is really critical that everyone at this stage goes through a process of change and growth. It's what we as society needs. If they don't push against things and look towards their peers, they will just become closed and rigid and not be able to be the young people and then the adults that they need to be, that their families need them to be, their employers in the future need them to be, and society needs them to be. So they're not immature, they're just being exactly who they're meant to be. So some things about their brain. I'm going to throw around a few words that I'm sure you've heard of before, but the 3 parts of the brain that I just want to talk about briefly is the limbic system, the cortex, and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the thalamus. So they're to do with lots of emotions and feelings, and their motivation for starting and continuing, their notion of attachment and the strong attachment that they have and that secure place that they have with parents becomes a little bit different. And in fact, the changes to their brain is going to cause them to think and look beyond their immediate family and the significant parents and people in their lives that you are, but it's right that they start looking to their sides to see their peers. So the emotions and those things come from the part of the brain that's called the limbic system. The cortex is helping with ideas and building maps and thoughts and structures of ideas and concepts, and the prefrontal cortex is me and myself, me, others, and then how do we work together? How do we work together? So those 3 parts of the brain are critical as they enter into these years of being 13, 14, and 15. But the final point about the brain is the integration of those parts. And as the brain develops, it's very important that those activities that are happening in the brain are supported by parents and teachers, so that it can create harmony literally in the cognition of their thinking and being, so that they can become flexible thinkers, flexible human beings, strong in their capacity to face life. So that's the brain. The second part is I just want to celebrate the gorgeous essence of adolescence. What are they like? And as 12 and 13-year-olds, they continue to have this emotional spark, this social engagement. They love novelty. They probably are biased to the emphasizing the positive. I'm not going to get hurt. That's not going to happen. It's going to be okay. They ignore the negatives that might be a possibility. Don't do it. Doesn't do it with them. So we have to help them think through, because they have this natural bias to the positive, which is great. It's refreshing and lovely. So the risky behaviour and the hyper rationality needs to be just aware. We need to be aware of that. So remember, don't do it. Doesn't do it unless you help them think it through really carefully. So what can we do as the adults in their lives, as parents? Can I just offer a few things for us to be reminded of? Promote and reward effort. It's not just doing well. It's very important that we reward achievement and mastery of goals because of effort, not just because they're smart. There's many different types of intelligence, but we want to reward and honour and celebrate their effort. And so we need to promote achievement and the mastery of goals. Promote self-knowledge and the fact that they can learn to be in control. They can therefore make decisions. So that's all about helping them set boundaries, all about helping them think through what could happen if the world isn't as rosy as you're seeing. What could happen? What would be the likelihood? And let's work that through. Help them to be wise decision makers by thinking things through, thinking through consequences. Encourage a high activity level, but remember, sometimes doing nothing helps them work out how to do something. So if they don't know what to do, that's okay. Let them find some creative things, let them build new connections so they can find their fit. Also, just a reminder about the resource that we have, Schools TV. Look at your the Hillbrook app. It will point you in the direction of Schools TV. It's an amazing resource that we subscribe to. It's made and by particularly psychologist Michael Carr-Gregg and funded by Beyond Blue. So this is a wonderful resource that you might want to tap into. The videos and sessions are not too long. You can watch it while kids are at netball or at hockey or something. So I just remind you about that excellent resource. It's on our website and you can find it on our app. Schools TV it's called. And you can check out what EAC and Parents.Connect are promoting and sponsoring in the next few weeks. It's a Q&A with our schools counsellor, Katie Dunlop, and it's about the balancing act of boundaries. And at this stage, 12 and 13-year-olds need help to know the boundaries and how to think about realistic, rational and careful boundaries. So there's just a few things that you might want to just be checking out. Check out the school's newsletter, check out our website, and find out ways that you can help your adolescent find their fit. This is the stage that they're meant to be at. Courageous, creative, and connected. So I'm going to pass back to Mark now for the process about selecting subjects for year 8 and 9. Thanks, Mark.
Now onto the nuts and bolts about subject selection process from year 7 to year 8. And this is actually the first time that our year 7 students get to choose their elective subjects. And you'll see a broad range of subjects that are available for them to choose from. And these are all year-long courses that they'll complete in 2021 and build the foundation for their choices in year 9 and in year 10. On this slide, you'll see the core subjects that students will continue to study in 2021. And you'll be quite familiar with these choices as they've studied these subjects in year 7. But the elective choices are what they need to focus on in this particular process. And you will have had some information about what each of these subjects entail and what students will study in these electives in the subject selection booklet that came to you via email at the end of term 2. So what students need to do is they need to choose 3 of these subjects, and we encourage that they choose a broad range, and they may not be subjects that they initially thought that they would choose. We encourage them to follow some of their interests, but also take up a little bit of a challenge at this point in time. So take a read through the subject selection booklets and help your child familiarise themselves with these subjects and the choice that they're about to make. Lane is also a subject that continues in year 8. And the purpose of Lane is so that students can engage with some literacy and numeracy support that they may need that will support their subjects as they study over next year and beyond. So the Enrichment Centre will be in contact with students who they think would and should study Lane next year, but we encourage you also to make contact with the Enrichment Centre if you think that there might be some gaps in your child's literacy and numeracy that you're wanting them to spend some extra time on at the moment. And just so that you know, Lane is a subject that's offered in Year 8, that will continue in Year 9. And it replaces an elective choice that students will make. So please wait for some communication from the Enrichment Centre or make contact with them if Lane is a subject choice that you're considering for your child. So subject selection is an online process, and students will have received an email which shares with them the link for them to go into and to make their elective choices. And we ask students to just let us know to begin with what they're considering studying. And then once they've shared that information with us, we develop the lines, which is when the subjects will run and what subjects will run, how many classes we will run, on what days of the week. And so the initial subject process tells us what they're interested in studying, and then we will develop the lines and send those lines out, and students will choose their final 3 elective choices based on the lines that have been developed. Once that process has happened, the information will also go to our teachers, and our teachers will have a conversation with your child if they're concerned about any of their choices at this point. So what we ask students to do at this point is to make a broad range of choices of subjects and not just to focus on one particular area, for instance, but also think about what they're interested in and where their talents lie, and to experience the subjects across this year-long course. While also thinking it is a good opportunity to challenge themselves and to do a subject that they may not have previously considered and to see what that's like. So please encourage those choices as we are. They may also want to choose subjects that they think are leading to a certain pathway that they're considering along their schooling journey, and maybe even have some ideas about what that might look like when they leave. We don't expect them to, but if they're starting to choose subjects that focus on certain interests of theirs, that's also a good way to make some choices. On this slide, you'll see the process and you'll see the key dates. So the portal is open at the moment for students to make their initial subject choices, and that remains open until the 30th of July. After that point, as I said, teachers will get those lists and will be able to contact your child if they have any queries or questions around the choices that they're making. And then we produce the lines. And that information comes out, you'll see there, on the 7th of August for students to then make their final subject selection. So they'll receive the lines online again, where they'll go into the portal and make their final selection before the 21st of August. It's not a race. Students don't need to rush in there and make the choices. They just need to make the choices by those key dates. And then we commit to communicating with you in October about the subjects that they will study next year. Thank you very much for joining Stephanie and myself for this presentation. As always, if you have any questions, you're welcome to send us an email or to give us a call. Our email addresses are up on the screen if you don't already have them. But we wish your child all the best during this process, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.